Rosemary, the smell of summer, something we need in this here depth of winter. In November I had the privilege to go to Spain, and in Spain the mountainsides are just completely grown over by rosemary. We know smell tube isn't technically a thing yet, but I think you can imagine the scent of this castle if I just told you that all of this is a rosemary. So fragrant. And while rosemary is delicious, smells good, it also is a good dye source. But next to this just being an exploration of rosemary, I want to do a little experiment. I have wondered already for a long time whether it makes a difference in which stage you dye your wool or your yarn. So we are going to dye some floof, which is already pre-scoured, which means that I have stripped it of the lanolin with some hot water and soap. It is already dried. And I have some spun yarn. Which one will take color best? That is the question. Before we can actually put them in a rosemary bath, we need to prep them by mordanting it. And therefore I have gathered some rainwater from my rainwater vat. We're going to heat it and add alum. One day I might get a better setup than this little thrift store stove, but today is not that day. I only just noticed. I've been using this pot of alum for ages now, and it says for the dose to own taste. Please do not put alum in your mouth. Not such a good idea. A dye vat that doubles as a simmer pot. How luxurious. So, after a couple of hours of a simmer on medium heat, we have extracted some deep color. It is like orange and green simultaneously. Yeah, I'm pretty interested, curious to see which one of the two tones that I'm seeing right now will take the overtone on the yarn and the floof. First going to rinse out any excess alum that might be in here, because then the color will just go to the alum directly instead of going to the mordanted floof. Yarn and floof. Let's see whether the state of being of both bits of wool makes any difference for dyeing. Now, why the two fiber types, you might ask? I don't know why, but I have a slight suspicion that actually dyeing yarn instead of dyeing floof might give a deeper, more vibrant color. I have absolutely no idea what will be the cause of this. It's just that it is something that I have observed and now want to see whether or not it is true by putting the floof and the yarn together in the dye pot. They take the exact amount of dyeing, they have the exact amount and the exact consistency, the exact type of dye. There is everything. All the variables are the same, except that one is floof and one is yarn. And hopefully you will see a difference, otherwise this video is just me doing something that I could have Googled and then not having any results whatsoever. But I like to learn by doing it, by seeing it myself, by experiencing it myself. Somehow that makes stuff stick better in my brain. Even though a lot of stuff sticks in my brain without me even wanting it to stick there, but that's a whole other can of worms. What I'm doing? Fishing for compliments, clearly, because have you noticed how much the sound and light quality of my videos have improved recently? And while for all my crafty stuff, I prefer to learn myself, to do all the things myself, to experience it myself, yeah, I'm not the same way when it comes to all the technical stuff behind this YouTube thing. So for that, I trust the guidance of the experts from today's sponsor, Skillshare. Skillshare is the largest online learning community for creatives with thousands of classes led by industry experts. Indeed, if you want to give natural dyeing a go, but don't fancy my experimental way of learning, Skillshare has an array of different classes teaching you the ins and outs of this craft. But also, if you're more interested in illustration and design or productivity and creative inspiration classes, Skillshare can help you take your skills to the next level. Via curated learning paths, you learn how to master a new skill or competency. You already know that I try to continually up my video making game, so I am currently taking a class on the basics of video lighting. Skillshare has made finding your ideal class or learning path easier with a new and improved class system, which includes smarter class categories, new topics, and the ability to find classes by software and material, and yes, yarn is such a material. If you want to join Skillshare as well, then head on down to the description box, because the first 500 people to use my link in the description will receive a 1 month free trial of Skillshare. Get started today! Let's check out our floof and our yarn. Well, it seems like my suspicion was correct. This skein looks slightly darker than the floofs. I have combed some of it because otherwise I would have spent 67 years unpicking all the little bits of rosemary out of it, and I thought combing, I might lose some of the floof, but that's a lot faster. And this is the floof uncombed. As you can see, yeah, my skein is slightly a little bit darker. I also do really enjoy the color that it created. If you have seen some of my previous videos, you know that I am still on the quest for a perfect green, and while not a perfect green, I do love that it is green-ish, olive green almost. Yeah, really pretty. Too bad I'm no longer still in Spain, where I can just scour the entire mountainside of the rosemary. People who are more knowledgeable on the field of dyeing, with YE, I mean, of course. Do you actually have an explanation to why it could be that a dyed skein is darker, more prone to taking up the dye than the floof is? Because especially when I'm holding them up like this, the difference between the two is quite striking. And while I have now confirmed my own suspicion, because they were in the exact same dye bath, I don't know why this is, and I would like to know. So if you know why, the comment section is your playground. Go wild! Also, it smells so nice. Anyway, that was it for this little fun experiment, or at least I hope it was fun for you as well. If you like these kind of fiber shenanigans, then maybe you could like, comment or subscribe. Psych! Didn't think I was going to end this video on such an unsatisfying point, now did you? Because as such, actually this is a video topic that I could just simply Google and tell you the answer. I did that, but I still could not tell you the answer. I also went through some of my dyeing books, both an English and a French one, and I still could not tell you the answer. My third book might give a clue. A piece of thick woolen felt may appear a deeper color than unspun woolen fleece or a skein of wool, although both were treated in exactly the same way and dyed in the same dye bath. This is because the structure of the felt is denser and more compact than spun or unspun wool, and there are more individual fibers for the dye to adhere to. This naturally speaks of felt and not of a skein of yarn versus unspun wool. But I think the same thing might apply here. There are more fibers in a smaller distance. My English is failing me. This is the life of a multilingual person, don't mind me. What if the difference is just purely optical? That's what I'm getting at. What if actually both the unspun wool and the yarn are the same shade, the same tone of green, but it's just that there is more fiber together in the yarn than there is in the unspun bits of wool. Now, the only way that I'm going to know whether or not this is the case is to actually spin the unspun wool and see if this is an optical thing. Of course, it is also just an excuse to use my new spindle for this, right? Like, I told you that I wanted to use this little turkish spindle in a video, and now I have an excuse for it. 2 little combed fluffs of this rosemary dyed green wool, and let's see how it compares after it is spun. Boop. You can be hella sure that I am instantly a member of trying to get a pretty turtle club. This is so satisfying to do and to look at. That looks weird. It's alive! I have worked a little bit ahead and now I have a neat, whoa, 2-ply turtle. I think it is time to compare the results. What do you think? Is this going to be as dark as my previous spun and plied skein? So for those of you who have been shaking their heads at me for the first 10 minutes of this video, it does seem to be an optical thing indeed. We still have one of the floofs over here, which is clearly lighter than the yarn I just spun on my spindle. However, these 2 colors are still not the same. I think that might have to do with a difference in sheep breed or something. I hope, friends, that this is a much more satisfactory ending to this video, that in the end it does not matter if you dye the floof first or if you dye it after it is already spun. In terms of depth of color, that is. There are other reasons why you want to dye your floof first and then spin it, and some other reasons where you want to dye your yarn first. For example, if you want a nice, consistent, overall the same looking yarn, I think it would be best to dye it as yarn. If you, however, want to play around with colors, have some nice transitions, dye the floof first. But for depth of color, there's no difference. I nonetheless hope that this was still an interesting video for you, even though the conclusions are it was all optical. Anyway, if you like these kind of fiber shenanigans, then maybe you could like, comment or subscribe, but of course that is all up to you. And as for me, I will see you in a next video. But before we do that, maybe you could look at some more dyeing shenanigans. Bye.